What is the economic reality that allows Nicolás Maduro to remain in power despite the fact that his population does not want him, did not vote for him, and does not know what else to do to end his tyranny? The answer to this question lies in the illegal activities that are carried out by the state itself. The Bolivarian Revolution is a Cuban franchise that has a well-defined model. With illegal and secret activities, they generate enough income to allow the maintenance of the bribes with which Nicolás Maduro supports the military leadership so that they can guarantee with the force of arms a strong pressure with which he keeps his population threatened. In this report, we will see how drug trafficking became one of the main illegal sources of financing for the Venezuelan regime. We will show you the cocaine routes and how they achieve the fundamental income of money for the financing of Venezuelan politics. What do tons of cocaine, planes bound for Afghanistan, long-range private jets, submarines sailing the Caribbean Sea, and the Venezuelan National Guard have in common? It all sounds like a movie plot, but it's a preview of what we'll show you in this report. How does the drug trafficking business that Nicolás Maduro's regime maintains work? Let's find out. Since 2013, Nicolás Maduro's regime has been facing increasing international pressure and an unprecedented economic collapse. With monetary reserves at their lowest level in years and economic activity reduced, Maduro and his accomplices found in drug trafficking a method to guarantee the necessary financing to bribe the armed forces. Any of the main leaders of the world's drug cartels, from the legendary Pablo Escobar to El Chapo Guzman, and drug traffickers of the stature of Rafael Caro Quintero or the brothers Miguel Angel and Oscar Omar Treviño Morales, know that one of the most complex problems is crossing borders to their destination, mainly the United States and Europe, trying to evade controls. In addition, they need secure operating bases and very delicate logistics to get it onto some means of transport that can transport it unnoticed. It is a complex and risky operation. It is very complex and very risky. Unless you can have the sovereign infrastructure of a country, having control over the security forces, the airports, the borders, and eventually even the justice. In that case, the advantages are very great and you can traffic on a large scale. And if in addition you have access to long-range private jets registered with license plates from other countries that allow you to travel with diplomatic bags, everything is guaranteed. It is not in vain that Pablo Escobar Gaviria tried to enter politics by occupying a seat as a representative in the National Congress of Colombia in 1982. The gang of criminals that runs the Venezuelan government is well organized, has years of experience, and has its functions clearly distributed. At this critical moment when they need to improve income from drug trafficking to stay in power, the regime appointed Diosdado Cabello as Minister of Internal Affairs, Justice and Peace to be able to strengthen all internal logistics. Diosdado Cabello, who has been accumulating complaints and testimonies that refer to him as the leader of the Cartel de Los Soles for more than 10 years, has an experience that is proven and recognized, not only by the United States Justice Department, where he has an arrest warrant and a reward for his surrender, but also by members of other drug cartels with which he operated. The former lieutenant of the former leader of the Medellin cartel, Pablo Escobar, the hitman named John Jairo Popeye Velázquez Vázquez, spoke to Diosdado Cabello about his activity as head of the Cartel de Los Soles.
Señor Diosdado Cabello, de bandido a bandido, los norteamericanos tarde que temprano llegarán por usted, porque usted es el jefe del Cartel de los Soles. Usted es un gran narcotraficante, los norteamericanos no olvidan. Por eso no quieren ustedes soltar el poder, porque saben que la justicia va detrás de ustedes.
Hugo Chavez and Fidel Castro had already decided that they would fight imperialism from an ideological standpoint, but that they would also send to the United States all the drugs they could to harm it from within, and in the process have a lucrative business to finance the revolution. For half a century, Castro's Cuba has been trafficking drugs, and with the Chavista alliance, it extended the business by bypassing Venezuela and reaching the FARC directly to facilitate their exit through its sovereign spaces. Cocaine trafficking, which crosses Venezuelan borders and airports, has reached record levels in recent months, generating revenues estimated between $1 and $2 billion in recent months, according to estimates by specialists. This increase in drug trafficking was also reflected in recent international seizures that grew sharply. Between April and August of this year, authorities from 4 different countries seized 7 tons of pure cocaine circulating through Venezuela. In Turkey, for example, Interior Minister Ali Erlikaya confirmed that 608 kilograms of cocaine were confiscated in an operation that led to the capture of 13 people, including the Venezuelan drug lord of Lebanese origin, Dani Talal Awad Abu Shanab. This seizure reveals a growing pattern in the use of Venezuela as a key platform for global drug trafficking. But what caught the attention of specialists is the coincidence of the appearance in different cities of the same method of trafficking that is growing strongly and points to Venezuela as its possible origin: liquid cocaine. This method that allows the camouflage of cocaine hydrochloride in liquid suspension in international shipments of all kinds is being done on an industrial scale, and the chemical analyses carried out in various anti-drug operations in which million-dollar seizures were obtained show that their formulation indicates that they were made in the same place. Who could have a chemical plant in which to make such a volume of production that is being found in shipments all over the world without being detected? According to what was documented in federal courts in the United States, liquid cocaine is being processed in the industrial facilities of no less than the Venezuelan state oil company PDVSA. Venezuela stopped being a place of passage, as in the time of Hugo Chavez, and became a country of large-scale production and processing. The appearance of large volumes of seized drugs always implies that there is a greater volume of drugs transported. The latest major cases that were reported all involve for processing or transit to Venezuela. The largest recent seizure was 3.6 tons of cocaine at the Maiquetía International Airport near Caracas, when the National Guard intercepted a flight of the state airline Emtrasur that was bound for Afghanistan. The operation triggered international alarms since the authorities captured 13 people involved in the transfer of the drugs. 3 of them were identified as responsible for coordinating the entry of cocaine from Colombia through the border with the state of Táchira in Venezuela. This shipment was transported in coffee packages for more than 800 kilometers of Venezuelan highway without being detected, which points to the complicity of the Bolivarian National Guard, historically involved in drug trafficking. The drug trafficking operation from Venezuela has extended beyond the South American borders. Agents from the DEA and the Colombian National Police detected the shipment from its departure in Colombia and followed it to determine the route of departure. Since May 2024, these agencies have been working together, exchanging intelligence in real time to stop drug trafficking on the Colombian-Venezuelan border. This collaboration increased after a meeting in Bogotá between the director of the DEA, Ann Milgram, and the Colombian General William Salamanca. The value of the shipments seized in Maiquetía reached $250 million on the international market. This is not the first time that the Venezuelan airport has been used to export cocaine. In 2013, 1.3 tons were seized on an Air France flight. The stopover in Afghanistan and its road to Asia raised suspicions that Venezuela could be using new routes to distribute cocaine in less monitored markets, such as Asia, diversifying its usual drug trafficking routes. The shipment of cocaine from Venezuela to countries as far away as Afghanistan is a sign of expanding drug trafficking operations. Although Afghanistan was historically the world's largest producer of opium, its role in global trafficking has changed in recent years. However, the decline in opium production has opened up new opportunities for Venezuelan cocaine to reach that country and be distributed in the Asian market. A strategic move to evade international pressure.
Encontramos que la guerrilla colombiana ha replicado en Venezuela la infraestructura de la cocaína que durante décadas perfeccionaron en Colombia. Descubrimos plantaciones de coca a escala industrial en 3 estados venezolanos ubicados en la frontera con Colombia. Y tenemos reportes que no hemos podido verificar de cultivos de coca en 2 otros estados. También tenemos reportes de primera mano de laboratorios de producción de cocaína y de aeropuertos clandestinos utilizados para transportar la cocaína.
Despite sanctions and increased surveillance, cocaine trafficking continues to flourish in Venezuela. In the northwest region of Guyana, more than 3 tons of cocaine were seized that entered from Venezuela. This seizure, the largest in Guyana's recent history, had an estimated value of $200 million. Local authorities worked together with the DEA in the operation, which is evidence of the growing international cooperation to stop Venezuelan drug trafficking. The complicity of the Maduro regime with drug trafficking is well documented. Key figures in the National Guard and the Venezuelan armed forces are implicated in protecting these trafficking routes. The lack of decisive action by the government to stop these activities suggests direct complicity, allowing drug shipments to cross the country without being intercepted except in those cases where international pressure forces action.
Los grupos delictivos no solo ven en Venezuela una oportunidad para emplear mano de obra barata, sino también un lugar donde la ausencia y la complicidad del Estado les permite operar con impunidad. De hecho, mucho antes de que se comenzara a producir cocaína en Venezuela, ya esta nación contaba con una compleja infraestructura para el transporte y la exportación de droga producida en otros países. Algunas estimaciones revelan que cada año entre el 10% y el 15% de la producción global de cocaína se trafica a través de Venezuela, y estas actividades son respaldadas y protegidas por funcionarios de todo tipo.
The Orinoco Mining Arc, a vast region rich in natural resources in southern Venezuela, has become a new epicenter of drug trafficking. According to DEA reports, clandestine air routes from this area have increased considerably, connecting Venezuela with other countries such as Guyana and Suriname. From these departure points, cocaine is transported to West Africa and other international markets. Organizations such as Inside Crime have been reporting on the routes, the modalities, and also denouncing the government's complicity.
Estas redes de tráfico de droga están integradas en las fuerzas militares y de seguridad venezolanas. Las investigaciones de Inside Crime confirman, por ejemplo, cómo los militares transportan la droga en vehículos oficiales o aceptan sobornos para que los traficantes puedan saltarse los controles del espacio aéreo o marítimo. Entre los acusados por Estados Unidos de participar y lucrarse de este sistema están Vladimir Padrino López, el ministro de Defensa del gobierno de Maduro, y Diosdado Cabello, diputado venezolano y capitán activo de las fuerzas militares, quien es considerado el líder más visible del Cartel de Los Soles. La participación de Nicolás Maduro es mucho menos explícita, pero no menos importante.
The influence of drug trafficking on the political stability of Venezuela is undeniable. Maduro has managed to stay in power thanks to the protection of the military leadership, whose high command is deeply involved in drug trafficking. With more than 1,000 tons of cocaine circulating through the country annually, the income derived from these activities allows the regime to sustain its power structure through bribery and repression. In previous reports, we have shown how the country is being emptied and real ecocides are being generated in the exploitation of gold and coltan, which leaves the country clandestinely, evading controls and sanctions, to enrich the personal coffers of those who are controlling the destiny of the regime and using those resources to sustain the chain of bribes. These fraudulent maneuvers of looting Venezuela's assets have allowed officials and their families to accumulate million-dollar fortunes that are sent to different countries through shell companies and front men, which are now being investigated as part of the officials' illicit enrichment. The officials who really run Venezuela have a luxurious quality of life, with the use of private planes, personal security, and mansions that are true fortresses, while their relatives and close circles are abroad enjoying a similar life and investing the real illegal remittances that are provided to them by the regime. This is the format that is being attacked by international coordination, operating as a constricting effect that will accelerate until the beginning of 2025. In previous reports, we have published information regarding the operation used and even announced the list of those potentially sanctioned that the United States Treasury Department had drawn up, and that was finally published. This first round of sanctions included only 16 people, but there are more to come, which we will announce as soon as it is available. This information is of vital importance and deserves to be disseminated, so we will provide it in detail so that both the name and the reason used by the North American agency itself can be known. Those who do not wish to see all the details can do so in advance. The first to be sanctioned, and we quote verbatim, who obstructed democratic political participation and undermined the electoral process, were designated in accordance with Executive Order 13,692, as can be read on the official website are Inocencio Antonio Figueroa Arizaleta has been a TSJ magistrate close to Maduro since 2014 and currently serves on the Constitutional Chamber of the TSJ. He previously served as a magistrate of the Political Administrative Chamber of the TSJ, according to multiple press reports. In addition, according to media coverage, in his capacity as a TSJ judge, Figueroa supported the Electoral Chamber's decision to review and certify the CNE's claim that Maduro had won the election. Figueroa participated in the TSJ's technical expert review at the CNE and was involved in the summons of presidential candidates and political party leaders to the TSJ as part of the electoral review process backed by Maduro. In 2019, Canada sanctioned Figueroa for undermining democracy. Malaquías Gil Rodríguez is a magistrate and has served as president of the Political Administrative Chamber of the TSJ since 2022. He previously served as vice president of the Electoral Chamber of the TSJ. He has held a position in the judiciary since 2010. In addition, according to reliable media sources, Gil has obstructed democracy by disqualifying Machado's presidential candidacy. In 2018, Canada sanctioned Gil for corruption and violation of human rights. Juan Carlos Hidalgo Pandares is a magistrate and has served as vice president of the Political Administrative Chamber of the TSJ since 2022. Previously, Hidalgo served as a general of the Bolivarian National Guard and Attorney General of the Army. In addition, according to media sources, Hidalgo has obstructed democracy by disqualifying Machado's presidential candidacy. Caryslia Beatriz Rodríguez heads the Maduro-aligned TSJ. Rodríguez has been president of the TSJ since January 2024 and heads the TSJ Electoral Chamber. In addition, according to media sources, Rodríguez and the Electoral Chamber certified Maduro's baseless claim that he had won the election despite well-founded allegations of widespread electoral fraud in the July elections. Fanny Beatriz Marquez Cordero is the vice president of the TSJ and a member of the Electoral Chamber. Marquez was among the Electoral Chamber officials who oversaw the technical evaluation process of the evidentiary material presented by the CNE, political organizations, and former candidates participating in the presidential elections of July 28, 2024. Several media outlets claimed that Marquez was among the Electoral Chamber officials who certified Maduro's baseless claim of victory. Edward Miguel Briceño Cisneros is the special judge of the First Court of First Instance aligned with Maduro with jurisdiction over terrorism. In addition, according to press sources, Briceño issued an arrest warrant against González Urrutia less than an hour after the public prosecutor's office requested it on charges of usurpation of functions, incitement to disobedience to the law, criminal association, sabotage to damage systems, and association with opponents whom Maduro considers criminals. Luis Ernesto Duenes Reyes is a prosecutor for the Public Prosecutor's Office, an institution aligned with Maduro. In his position, Duenes issued the official request for an arrest warrant against opposition presidential candidate Edmundo González Urrutia, which was later issued by Briceño. González Urrutia had to flee Venezuela and went into exile in Spain on September 8. Rosalba Gil Pacheco is the rector of the CNE, and since 2023, she has served as president of the Civil Registry and Electoral Commission of the CNE, an entity aligned with Maduro. She also served as secretary of the National Assembly aligned with Maduro since January 2021. Gil Pacheco has obstructed democracy by establishing a new restrictive rule for election observer eligibility, instituting voter registration irregularities, and intentionally delaying processes at polling stations. In addition, Gil Pacheco declared Maduro the winner of the presidential election without publishing results at the electoral district level and without conducting required audits of the country's electronic voting system, among other electoral irregularities, according to widely reported press reports. Antonio José Meneses Rodríguez has been the acting Secretary General of the CNE since August 2023. Meneses, according to press reports, instituted a new restrictive rule for the eligibility of electoral prosecutors, introducing irregularities in the electoral registry and intentionally delaying processes at the voting centers. Before serving at the CNE, he also signed the Comptroller's Office document confirming Machado's disqualification. Dinora Jocelyn Bustamante Puerta is a prosecutor serving in Venezuela's first specialized court of first instance, an office within the Maduro-aligned General Directorate of Military Counterintelligence. In addition, according to media sources, Bustamante obstructed democracy and the rule of law by initiating politically motivated criminal proceedings, which resulted in the arbitrary detention of members of the US-recognized 2015 National Assembly and other officials opposed to Maduro. The European Union, the United Kingdom, and Switzerland sanctioned Bustamante in 2020 according to sanctions databases. Pedro José Infante Aparicio serves as first vice president of the Maduro-aligned National Assembly. He also served as president of the Special Commission for the Investigation and Prosecution of Opposition Parties and representatives of the legislature 2016-2021 for the dispossession and robbery of CITU as part of the Furia Bolivariana campaign launched in January 2024 against the democratic opposition. In that role, the commission subpoenaed several opposition members in apparently politically motivated proceedings. Domingo Antonio Hernández Lares is the strategic operational commander of the Maduro-aligned Bolivarian National Armed Forces, serving since July 2021. Hernández previously served as commander of the strategic region of the Capital for Comprehensive Defense, RETI Capital. Hernández was denounced by a human rights defender in 2019 as a Maduro repressor due to the increase in repression and systematic harassment by intelligence and security agencies in areas under his control. In addition, according to various press releases, the FAMB has carried out acts of repression against Venezuelans, including arbitrary arrests and threats to those who participate in peaceful protests. Elio Ramón Estrada Paredes is the commander of the Bolivarian National Guard, GNB, aligned with Maduro, in office since July 2023. In that position, Estrada leads the GNB's anti-terrorist directorate that carries out intelligence work to detect and capture those involved in alleged destabilizing plans and other crimes. Under Estrada's command, and prior to the election, the ENEB harassed and detained Venezuelans on suspicion of materially supporting Machado during the election campaign, according to numerous press sources. Estrada led the ENEB in arresting thousands of peaceful pro-democracy protesters following the July 28th election. Johan Alexander Hernández Lares is the commander of the ENEB's RETI capital. Hernández Lares previously served as Major General of the Zona de Defensa Integral del Estado Miranda, or Zona Operativa de Defensa Integral del Estado Miranda, commonly known as ZODI Estado Miranda. Asdrúbal José Brito Hernández is the Director of Criminal Investigations for the DGCIM. Brito was previously the Director of Counterintelligence for the Presidential Delegation. Brito is identified as a torturer in United Nations reports, and according to multiple press reports, the DGCCIM has led a coordinated campaign called Operation Tok Tok to harass, detain, and arbitrarily arrest members of the opposition and civil society following the election. Miguel Antonio Muñoz Palacios is the Deputy Director of the Maduro-aligned Bolivarian Intelligence Service, SEBIN, since 2021. SEBIN has carried out politically motivated arrests and detentions of Maduro, opposition leaders, volunteers, election workers, and election witnesses. Muñoz is one of the top leaders of Venezuela's Pitbull Group, a group comprised of SEBIN personnel from the General Directorate of Military Counterintelligence. The Pitbull Group was tasked with doing the dirty work, and there were no legal parameters on what they were tasked with doing. The Pitbull Group was also believed to be responsible for kidnappings and murders. The group probably kidnapped people to steal money from them and finance more similar operations. This first round of 16 people sanctioned complements the multiple measures that the Office of Foreign Assets Control, OFAS, has been adopting to sanction current or former Venezuelan officials pursuant to Executive Order 13,692 and its amendments for adopting undemocratic measures and violating human rights. To date, OFAC has sanctioned more than 140 Venezuelan individuals and 100 Venezuelan entities, including key Venezuelan officials, Nicolás Maduro Moros, sanctioned since 2017, Tarek William Saab, sanctioned since 2017, Jorge Eliezer Márquez Monsalve, sanctioned since 2017, Cilia Adela Flores de Maduro, sanctioned since 2018, Delcy Eloína Rodríguez Gómez, sanctioned since 2018, Diosdado Cabello Rondón, sanctioned since 2018, José David Cabello Rondón, sanctioned since 2018, Marlene Josefina Contreras Hernández, sanctioned since 2018, Vladimir Padrino López, sanctioned since 2018, Jorge Jesús Rodríguez Gómez, sanctioned since 2018, Remigio Ceballos Hichazo, sanctioned since 2019, Nicolás Ernesto Maduro Guerra, sanctioned since 2019. Key military and intelligence officials, Gustavo Enrique González López, sanctioned since 2015, Iván Rafael Hernández Dala, sanctioned since 2019, Gildemaro José Rodríguez Mucura, sanctioned since 2019. Rafael Enrique Bastardo Mendoza, sanctioned since 2019. Officials of the National Electoral Council. Elvis Eduardo Hidrobo Amoroso, sanctioned since 2017. Carlos Enrique Quintero Cuevas, sanctioned since 2017. Conrado Antonio Pérez Linares, sanctioned since 2020. Fabio Enrique Tzávar Cepabón, sanctioned since 2018. Officials and former officials of the Supreme Court of Justice. Gladys María Gutiérrez Alvarado, sanctioned since 2018. Michael José Moreno Pérez, sanctioned since 2018. Calixto Antonio Ortega Ríos, sanctioned since 2018. Luis Fernando Damiani Bustillos, sanctioned since 2018. Arcadio de Jesús Delgado Rosales, sanctioned since 2018. Carmen Auxiliadora Zuleta de Merchán, sanctioned since 2018. Lourdes Benicia Suárez Anderson, sanctioned since 2018. Juan José Mendoza Jover, sanctioned since 2018. The implementation of these measures, added to the information that is coming from the different countries that are providing data on assets that come from money laundering generated in operations linked to Venezuela, are preparing the next rounds of sanctions that will be broader. As international operations against drug trafficking intensify, the survival of the Maduro regime could be threatened. It must be taken into account that the International Criminal Court has also issued arrest warrants for a long list of officials to whom it has placed a financial reward, which, if we add all the Venezuelans on the list, already amounts to $102 million. That value, added to the economic suffocation that would occur when they cannot pay more bribes to the high military commanders, could stimulate an internal insurrection of military personnel who wish to collect the reward and re-establish democracy with the consecration of the elected president. The international strategy would seem to be oriented in that direction, creating internal pressure based on cutting off economic resources through various means and simultaneously. The plan presented to the Organization of American States, OAS, is to act jointly among all member countries and extend economic pressure on the accounts of Nicolás Maduro and his regime so that it acts as a tourniquet and prevents the availability of illegal funds to continue bribing the high military commanders to maintain the regime through weapons and against the popular will, under the premise that without money, there is no loyalty to Nicolás Maduro. In parallel, the United States is being asked to raise the value of the reward for the capture of Nicolás Maduro, Diosdado Cabello, and the main officials of the regime to stimulate the process. However, as long as trafficking routes and associated revenues continue, the regime is likely to continue funding its repressive machinery. In this regard, collaborations with agencies such as the DEA and neighboring governments are crucial to dismantle these networks and weaken the influence of drug trafficking in Venezuelan politics. With the accumulation of anti-drug operations taking place around the world, all of which are aimed at participation through production or transit, in Venezuela, the presidents of Latin America themselves are realizing that Maduro is representing all the evils that are intended to be eradicated in each country. Drug trafficking has become a fundamental piece for the survival of the Nicolás Maduro regime, and it does not care about contaminating the region, affecting its neighbors and flooding the population of Latin America with drugs. Through cocaine trafficking operations, the regime ensures sufficient income to maintain its control over the country. International cooperation, led by agencies such as the DEA and neighboring governments, is reacting too late in putting a stop to a process that has been increasing rapidly, and they must redouble their efforts if they really want to stop these illicit activities. The future of Venezuela will depend largely on whether these actions succeed in weakening the regime enough to force a political change. Meanwhile, the country remains trapped in a vicious circle of drug trafficking and corruption. Maduro's survival is deeply linked to drug trafficking and corruption. If the representatives of the countries of the region do not denounce the reality, they will remain entangled in a senseless debate and suffering an irreversible social scourge. The regime has already proven that it is not willing to respect the popular will of its people, and leaders, such as Maria Corina Machado, have already shown the world that the institutional path is not effective in dictatorships that have managed to establish a constitutional basis, as we explained in detail in our previous report, so the institutional path is beginning to show its limitations, and appropriate strategies must be encouraged to remove a dictatorship. Latin America has vast experience in removing dictators from power, and it is a matter of working together and accelerating the factors that undermine the true economic income of the regime. If this video has helped you better understand how this dark network that has kidnapped Venezuela works, do not forget to subscribe to Leadership Latam. Leave your comments below on what you think about the role of the international community in this matter, and share this video with those interested in the political future of Venezuela. See you in the next analysis.